45 years. The Golf GTI has been around for 45 years. For one thing, that is cause for celebration. But for another, this puts the GTI firmly in midlife crisis territory. You know, when you start wearing tracksuits in public again. Or in this case, stickers. The Clubsport and Clubsport S variants of the previous generation turned out to be serious performance hatchbacks that were impressive reminders of what VW is capable of. The latter came with a 310 horsepower engine tune, stripped out interior and revised suspension geometry, and as an enthusiast's car was only available with a 6-speed manual gearbox. Evo magazine knighted it as the GT3 of hatchbacks. With the facelift, the Clubsport was axed and the TCR took its place. A bit less power, a bit less manual, and, as journalists unanimously found, a bit less special. Simultaneously, its competitors were pushing the envelope as well, especially that one. The regular Clubsport comes with a 55 horsepower boost, lifting total output to 300. There are bigger intakes to facilitate the power hike, a new roof spoiler to produce more downforce, and a new exhaust system for improved flatulence. And the special driving mode for the Nordschleife. For another 4,000 Swiss francs, you get the 45 that comes with something called the race package on top of that, with new 19-inch wheels, a new exhaust system, removal of VMAX limiter, and a gloss black roof and spoiler, and the stickers. So where does the new one slot in? While it may say Clubsport on the tin, it is more like a successor to the TCR. No revamped GTI, more like a regular GTI with extra trim bits, more horsepower, and no manual gearbox. Let's talk about the gearbox a bit. It is no secret that in fairly modern cars, the lever and the gearbox are not physically connected. And by extension, the pedal shifters are not physically connected to the gearbox. The reason I'm mentioning that is, in this car, it seems like the pedal shifters aren't connected to the gearbox in any way, shape or form. Because how can it take so much processing to do an upshift? No. Especially with a dual clutch gearbox. These are the exact same pedal shifters that my old Touran had. They are very small, they aren't very nice to use, and this is especially interesting since VW does have nicer pedal shifters in the R models. That is a bit weird. Now compare this to the beautifully crisp 6-speed manual gearbox in the Civic Type R. Worlds apart, seriously, worlds apart. One thing that goes with the gear shift is, correct, the exhaust noise. Now before you book a room for me in Arkham Asylum, hear me out. So off the throttle and in sport mode, there is a cacophony of pops and bangs. And I don't like those very much. I think it's a bit immature. And even though I might not be the right person to make that judgment, it doesn't fit the GTI, or any VW for that matter. But then, the good thing is, when your right foot settles down, so does the exhaust. Which is a good thing because the Civic Type R never shuts up, even in comfort mode. Inside it's Mk8 Golf business as usual. Until you get to the seats, that is. Because while they may be the exact same seats as in regular Golfs, these are clad in fake and real leather, and they are heated and ventilated as well. Now, they are not exactly bucket seats as in the previous Clubsport or the Civic Type R. But to pull things back a bit, overall the interior feels a bit nicer. Now to the actual driving. The chunky steering wheel with the 45 plaque at 6 o'clock feels nice. But the steering itself feels a bit disconnected, especially in tighter corners. It is no match for the Civic Type Rs, but then to be fair, not many are. And the GTI is at a bit of a disadvantage. It's running on winter contis. They seem to work well on the Mazda MX-30, but they also seem a bit less resolved on this one. The engine is much more suited to this type of car. It is less rev happy than the Civics, but the torque range is quite a bit wider and starts significantly lower, so it's not easy to catch the GTI off guard. Revving the Civics engine is a bit more satisfying, but this one is more usable in daily driving, I'd say. These cars aren't that similar. Except for the Mk7 Clubsport, VW have not been taking part in the hardcore performance hatchback game. And even though this is called the Clubsport, it is not a fundamentally different car. It is a GTI pushed to the max, whereas the Civic Type R is a monster built on top of a regular family hatchback. If your key criteria is driving, then there's no way past the Civic Type R. But if you wanted to get a Golf all along, but you want a nicer one, then the Clubsport might be the Golf of your choice. Or is it? Because for less than 4,000 Swiss francs more, you can have the all-wheel drive Golf R. This is not a Clubsport, at least if you compare it to the hot GTIs of the previous generation. Don't get me wrong, it's powerful, it's fast, it's a decent drive even, but it's a bit too clinical, a bit too dull. If you've made the decision to get a GTI, by all means go for the Clubsport as the price bump is manageable. But if you haven't made up your mind yet, and you want your hatchback to be a touring car for the road, you have to consider the Civic Type R. There is just no match for it.